Hello and welcome. My name is Laura Carrotti, and this is the delicate business of being human. And this podcast is a kind of inquiry into what are the stories that we're telling ourselves about what it is to be a person. What are our responsibilities? What are our assets? What does it mean? What's the context? What's the setting? What are the gifts that we're given? So during the course of this inquiry, we're going to speak with a lot of different experts. And what I mean by expert is someone who really has dedicated their life to a particular line of inquiry, whether that be something in the body, whether that be something in the psyche, whether that be spiritual. Whatever it may be, there are those out there, and they might not all be Instagram famous or TikTok famous or whatever the hell the next thing is, but that they have the authority of having really dedicated themselves to a particular inquiry or a particular practice. And they show up day after day to kind of dig at the same theme. I am interested personally in speaking with elders, in speaking with lineage holders, in speaking with spiritual practitioners or practitioners in any case, scholars, those who have studied, those who have picked a particular thread of the human experience and studied it at depth. Because no matter what our particular line of study might be, it's always enhanced by the whole. And so a lot of the folks that I've invited to come on and talk will be speaking about things which might not seem like they blend into a coherent whole. But here's the deal. We often tend to really compartmentalize the human experience. That is to say, I have a body, and that body has needs, and it eats, and it sleeps, and it drinks, and it does all the things, and that's one section. And then I've got a mind and a psyche and emotions, and that's another section. And then I've got this spiritual, aspect of my being, and that's another. And what I would love us to take on here in this experiment is what would happen if I start to gain coherence between all of these seemingly disparate aspects of my human experience. And I'll add another one on there, and that is the environment around me, my relationality, the earth that I exist on and with and because of. How can I tie all of those things together? Because often when we look, we'll notice we put our energy and attention into one of them and kind of let the other one fly. And it's been my experience that we really need coherence. Coherence is one of the things that brings us the most stability in this human experiment. When what I think, what I feel, what I do, what I eat, who I see, how I treat them, how I am with my community, when all of these things are woven together, I have a better experience of living in a body. And one of the things that I am very interested in is a kind of intersection between spirituality and looking at our mind, looking at our behaviors. Because we tend to, and I'm a person who lived in spiritual realms, not like in the actual spiritual realms, right? I'm using quotations if you're only listening. Spiritual realms being like living in ashrams, living in communities, living in places where the entire focus was on basically your soul, and your subtle body and what you were doing with those things. And what we were doing with the emotions or what we were doing with the mind would kind of drop out of focus, what we do with the body. And I would love us to learn to consider ourselves as a whole. And so here on this program, we're going to be bringing in our experts to create a story. Human beings, since the beginning, have relied on storytelling to give our lives meaning, context, to accompany us on the trajectories that are inherent to this human experience. We've relied on them to get us through passages, both passages inherent to the human experience, like death, dying, puberty, menopause, betrayal, right? All of these things that feel incredibly personal, but are exceptionally general. They happen to everyone. Maybe not the menopause one, but you know. So how can we collectively examine the story that we're convinced is true, or at least the story that we're being fed? And if we don't think we're being fed a story, and if we don't think we have a story, that's a really good place to start. How can we weave together a story that honors and nourishes all of us, that treats us as a coherent whole? How can we move through the world in a way that touches all of these parts without having to compartmentalize and hide pieces away? So this podcast is under the umbrella of something called Amrita Kaya, which is an educational platform. And the hope is that this will be a way for us to get in touch with stories that would normally not cross our paths. Now, hopefully, at this juncture, we're grown up enough to know that nobody listens to a podcast episode and has their entire life change. None of us are that naive anymore, right? But what we could do here is come in contact with a portal of some kind, and not in the woo-woo way, a portal in the real way, a portal to a set of teachings, a portal to a teacher, a portal to a belief system, a portal to an understanding, which can start to spark an inquiry inside of us that can help us to fill in potentially some of the gaps, some of the places where we don't pay enough attention, we don't give enough energy. So Amrita Kaya is an educational platform, and this podcast is part of it. And I am someone who is really, really passionate about creating coherence, about broadening our field, and about listening to those whose maybe voices we don't usually hear from. My teachers have always been elders. My teachers have always been people that don't necessarily post consistently on Instagram or TikTok or wherever we are in the moment, because they're too busy doing their practice. So here I want us to have the encounter of folks that practice something. Yeah. And so I think to go further here, I'm going to have to introduce myself. So some of you know me really well. Some of you don't know me at all. And I'm going to try to do this in as brief a way as possible. But it's important that you understand who you're listening to and you understand the context that created the impulse for this podcast to exist. So let's just say, didn't have an easy first half of my life. I was not an exceptionally well-adjusted kid. Actually, I was pretty unwell-adjusted. And I suffered a lot with depression, with hopelessness, with suicidal ideation. And this started from a very young age and went consistently throughout my life. I was put in psychiatric care at the age of 9. I was hospitalized for almost a year from 14 to 15. And while that did a little something to kind of often take me out of the world that didn't really make a lot of sense to me, it didn't fix anything. It didn't really give me a way to understand what I was experiencing and why. And it didn't really give me any kind of viable solution. So I tried all the antidepressants and I tried all the therapies and I did all of the things. And by the time I was in my 20s, I was convinced that this was just how it was. And of course, there are chemical imbalances that we could talk about and things that are belonging to this body that I was born into that make things more challenging for me. But really, I reached a point where I lost hope. And the world did not make a lot of sense to me. It kind of never did. I didn't see myself following the trajectory that was put out in front of me. And in my late 20s, I did the kind of unimaginable. And I got rid of my rent-controlled Brooklyn apartment, sold most of the things that I owned, and left. I left America. I left New York. I left everyone and everything that I knew about. And I went to India, where I had never been. I basically then spent the next 18 years of my life in Asia. Nobody believed that I was going to go and I was going to stay gone. People thought I was going to go for like a year, find myself and come back. So there was this desperation. There was this desperation that would not leave me no matter what I did. And it was enough to make me commit a kind of non-lethal suicide, right? I let go of who I was. I let go of everything that I knew, everything that made sense. And I had to be upset enough, right? Like for you to leave all that behind. We were talking about a state of being that I could not tolerate any longer. I couldn't do it anymore. And so when I left holding on to nothing. I had no idea what I was flinging myself into, but I knew that I could not stay. I couldn't stay where I was. I couldn't stay how I was. Something needed to change. And this desperation, I consider now in retrospect a huge gift. If I wouldn't have been that far gone, I would never have left everything behind the way that I did. And let's not create a fairy tale in which I then landed on the subcontinent and everything worked out fine. There was a lot of struggle in that second half of my life. But something changed. And there's not a pinpoint moment. There's not a thing. There's me without any context, any understanding, in suffering, taking this big jump and finding context, finding practice, finding ways of renegotiating being a person in a body that helped me to orient to myself, to my pain, to my shortcomings, to my gifts in a really different way. And it took time and it took practice. Anytime I hear someone go, I did this course and my whole life changed, or I did this thing and my whole life changed, all I can think is your life must have been 99.9% perfect and you just needed that one little thing. Because for me, it was blood, sweat, and tears. It was a lot of work to start to understand my mind. It was a lot of work to start to get a context for my emotions. This required years and years of practice. And so I'll go back to the non-promise that I make, right? Listening to a podcast episode is not going to change your life. Listening to a podcast episode might give you an insight because of resonance, because it's something that hits into something you feel and know already. It might give you a pathway toward learning a practice, figuring out a philosophy, doing something that can get you closer to yourself. And this I feel like I do have some authority to speak on. All of our depression, all of our anxiety, all of our suffering almost always has something to do with feeling far from who we really are. And so steps that we can take to find out, because most of us don't even know. I certainly didn't. I still might not. Let's be realistic. Steps that we can take that give us the possibility to have a deeper encounter with ourselves and to learn to move more from that truth of our being is super valuable. So in those years that I was searching, I'm still searching, I'm still seeking. I consider myself a seeker above all. In those years, though, I came across a lot of different paths, lineages, techniques, trainings, teachings. And inside of them, there was a lot of trial and error because, and I'm going to harp on this a lot here, being a human being means you make mistakes. That's what we do here. That's part of what we come here to do, is to trial and error it, kids. This idea of perfection does not exist in the human realm. This is not for us. We are not perfect. We're not meant to be. That's not our lot in life. We are meant to be learning. Yeah. Not to give the spoiler away. This learning, this feeling like, wow, I'm all day, every day, getting closer to myself, getting closer to this force. And again, maybe I'm going to pause here. I'm going to pause here and I'm going to talk about spirituality, because this is a topic we're going to come up against again and again on this podcast. And I think it's good. I will offer you my definition. This is not the dictionary definition. This is not the capital T truth. This is Laura Carrotti's limited understanding definition of spirituality. Take it if it serves you, leave it if it doesn't. And that's going to be true, again, for every single thing we touch on here. If it serves you, if it resonates, great, it's yours. That's what this is here for. It's a sharing, it's an offering. If it doesn't serve you, leave it. I don't own the truth. No one does. That's one of the contextual realities that have helped me enormously through this life. Nobody knows the capital T irrefutable truth of how things are. Isn't that relaxing? But the way that I'm going to define spirituality here when we talk about it is the following. It is almost a set of questions. So the first question is, very simply and very broadly, is there an organizing structure here? Is reality and life as we experience it arbitrary, or is there some structure? If there is a structure, what is it? How does it work? Did someone or something do it? Is there a governing system here? Are there laws? Right? So this is the first crucial piece of inquiry that a human being longs to find. And even if we have no idea that we want to know, we still do. Because it's fundamental. It's fundamental, right? So first, is there an organizing structure here? Second, what is my relationship to it if there is? Is it a system cold, indifferent, like I don't know, like a bank that's in place and it's just running? Is it living and breathing like I am? Is it an animate force? Is it in relationship with me as a parent? Is it in relationship with me like a president? Is it in relationship with me like a sibling? Is it in relationship with me like me with myself? Is it inside of me? Is it outside of me? Is it aware of me? Is it also noticing me as I notice it? That's our second question. And third question is, do I want to be in relationship with this force, with this governing system, with this either big daddy in the sky or truth in my heart or whatever I'm going to quantify it as? Are we here together? Like, do I want to be in relationship with the organizing structure of reality? And what do I do to get in relationship with it if I want to be in relationship with it? What is my responsibility here? Do I have responsibility? Or am I like a baby in a pushchair and like just, I'm getting strolled around the neighborhood? Or is this a co-creation of some sort? I'm not here to give you those answers. I'm here to say that what spirituality is, no matter what genre of spirituality you look at, is an attempt to answer those questions. And I find the third question often lacking. I was brought up Catholic. Laura Carrotti, big mystery, right? I was brought up Catholic, and I was told there are a bunch of rules, but I didn't have any technology, any idea of how to get closer to this organizing structure, in this case, some kind of God. It was just like, it was me in my limited reality. It was that in its infinite reality, and there was no interface between us. But the problem was, I didn't really believe that that felt true or right. Now, nobody can tell you a right thing to believe or not. But what we hope to do is to get you to ask the right questions to understand what we believe. And then often we have to question it, unfortunately. So when I say that I spent all of those years doing spiritual practice, now you have a context for what I'm talking about, right? I was doing practices that were trying to strengthen the encounter between me and the organizing structure of all of reality. No big deal, right? But a lot of times, we don't even think of spiritual practice in that way. And a lot of times, and this is something that feels really sad to me, we see spirituality as something like woo-woo and kind of low IQ, or something that's very ungrounded, very undefined, very unscientific. And I'll tell you, in all those years in India, what I found was the opposite of that. That the people that I knew, at least, that were doing spiritual practice were some of the most intelligent, inquisitive, clued in human beings I had ever known. And there was nothing woo-woo about it. There was nothing arbitrary about it. And it required a really heartfelt, diligent practice. And I think part of the reason that I started this podcast was to start to give a voice to a different view of spirituality, one that was grounded, one that had a whole system involved, and one that was coherent. Again, there's nothing wrong with any system. If it works for you, that's the right one. I'm not here to judge anybody's beliefs. I'm not here to try to force my beliefs down anybody's throat. But if you, like me, were kind of half in a system that didn't make sense and didn't feel coherent and didn't feel true, what I found was that all the psychology in the world could not replace the need that I had, the desire that I had to find myself in space in more than just my own life and my own experience and my own mind. What spirituality does is it gives us a bigger space to occupy. We start to see that we are part of something. Just like National Geographic, right? When we watch the beaver and the beaver makes a dam and the dam creates this, habitat for all of these other animals. And then the other animals come and they drink from and it's like we are part of an ecosystem, both spiritual and physical, because we have bodies and we are animals. So I digress. I gave a definition of spirituality that is my working definition for you to understand what I'm speaking about when I say spiritual teacher or spiritual practice. So now that we have that, that's what I was doing. That's what I was doing for a couple of decades. I was in ashrams. I was in communities. I was in spaces basking in the mysteries. And I think maybe this is another caveat that I'm going to take here. I feel okay that I don't understand every single aspect of how reality is, because there's a little space for the mystery, and the mystery is where it all is. Something that is beyond my cognitive capacity to grasp. Something that is beyond what I can see, what I can measure, what I can know. Again, in quotations. That there is some ineffable source of life, that there is some source of wonder and awe and beauty. What we can know is limited. What we can feel is a little bit greater than that. And so we, as very finite, limited creatures, might go the duration needing to rely on some kind of faith, some kind of trust. And it's very hard for us in the modern world to have any of that. Right before I was leaving, I remember I was sitting with a friend who I've known since elementary school, and you might know this and you might not, but I believe that New Yorkers, we're like the actual apex of cynical. We are as cynical as human beings can reach. It's like anything that has to do with what cannot be seen, measured, and perceived with the senses is like a waste of time. And I sat there with my friend who I've known since we were 8, and he was like, listen, whatever you need to do, man, go ahead, go find yourself in India. And yes, the sarcasm was real. Go find yourself in India, but for the love of God, don't go worshiping Vishnu and all these, insert foreboding here, because that's exactly what I went and did. Because for me, I found more reason and sanity in that than anything else. And again, that's nothing I'm going to push on anyone. So, back to the story. I'm in India, I'm in Thailand, I'm all over Southeast Asia, and I am seeking and I am practicing, and little by little, everything starts to change. And it wasn't just understanding, right? It wasn't just me knowing, oh, okay, this is how things are, and these are the rules, and this is where you'll find the creative force, and this is where you'll find this and that. It was also, let's be really honest, in me finding like-minded people and having an amazing community. And so a dream started to arise of like, wow, I wish I could share some of what I received in the hopes that it will benefit others. So the idea of giving a more large-scale access to some of these things. Now, of course, I can't pick you up and drop you off in India in the middle of a loving, amazing community. That was also a pain in the ass a lot of the time. Let's be honest about things. In the middle of an amazing community, in the middle of, all of these amazing teachers. But I can start to give, to share some of all of this gold that for some reason landed in my lap. And there's not a day that goes by on the earth, even days that are bad, because I definitely still have bad days, that I am not overwhelmed by a sense of gratitude for everything that came to me. And it wasn't always cake either. It wasn't always that I had the right teacher and everything was clean and harmonious. Sometimes I had to dig pearls out of sludge. So a lot of what I will be sharing with you here is not necessarily me as a teacher. It will be my teachers, my colleagues, my comrades, my mentors, people that I look up to, whose opinions I value. And I cannot say that these are perfect people, because that doesn't exist. So let's just say here that everybody that's coming to talk to you is a human being like you are. A human being that has, again, one thread, one specialty, one aspect of this being a person that they have become an expert in. And they've come here to share it with you in the hopes that we can start to create this coherence that I was speaking about, that I can have my mind, my body, my heart, my spirit, my environment, my relationships, my connection to the earth, all be nourished and fed. Something that I have really noticed since I returned from the East is that I need to feed my mind as healthily as I feed my body. I need to feel inspired by what I take in. Because if we know, we've been told it from the time we were kids, right? That you are what you eat, right? That the food that you eat turns into your body. What you take in becomes your mind. And so my hope here is to create some healthy meals for you, like a healthy meal a week, where we can just get some nourishment, get some insight. There will be teachers that come back again and again, and we do a whole series of something on the mind, on the psyche, on the being. There will be teachers that come once and share their findings with us. We are going to explore what it is to be a person. And hopefully, one of the things that will get imparted is that we do have the ability to create a story in which we have agency, to create a story in which we have the capacity to change the way we interact with reality, and that requires work on our behalf, that we have to do something. If we want to change our lives, we can't just pay some retreat leader $3,000 and go, fix me, please, and do some big ayahuasca journey or some whatever. And I'm not saying we shouldn't do those things, but that's not going to create lasting change. What's going to create lasting change is changing the way we think about, feel about, interact with, and practice our lives. We can see spiritual practice as nothing more than the way that we would like to be in relationship with life, and a way to do a little tuning up there. Right? If we don't have perfect speech, perfect behavior, if there are things we would like to change, we need to practice changing those things. So this is not a quick fix. This is not an easy answer. This is not a one-size-fits-all. Nothing is. I've become terrified every time I open a screen and it starts to tell me about how bad I am and how I could be so much better if I would just buy this product, buy this course, do this thing. Yeah. So here we are going to talk about coherence. We're going to find ways that we can feed and nourish the being, and sometimes they will be so simple, and sometimes they'll be more complex and will really require a commitment and dedication from us. Thank you so much for being here, and I'm really, like I said, so grateful to have the tools that I have and so excited to share some of them. And again, it's not going to fix you. You don't need to be fixed, but maybe we need to talk about acceptance, and maybe we need to rewrite the story a little bit. Thank you so much. We'll be launching episodes once a week, and there'll be episodes with doctors, teachers, psychologists, anatomy nerds, nutritionists, whatever portal, whatever entryway can help us to be more whole. We'll take it. Thanks for being with me, and I look so forward to being together.